And now, for our special showcase, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Vijay Jaiswal, Director-Automotive, Industries and Commerce Department, Government of Telangana.
The capital of Telangana state is rewriting history as the most desired.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I represent Telangana state government here, and we at Telangana are working on an EV policy which will soon be released. It has gone for legislation. But before I talk about the EV hub and the EV policy thing, I would like to run a quick video on Telangana state industrial environment for you to understand whom am I representing. So.
Desirable investment destination in India.
Today, the 14 Japanese companies are operating in Hyderabad. They will bring another new investment.
A number of factors make it the hot investment destination that it is. Mercer's Quality of Living report has ranked Hyderabad as the best livable city globally. Hyderabad is a city which can boast a future-ready infrastructure, an unparalleled skilled human resource pool, moderate temperature range throughout the year, non-cyclonic and non-seismic zone, a world-class airport that connects world-class custom-designed parks. In terms of cost of living, it offers the best buck for one's money. It is in fact every investor's dream destination. While the state has an inherent strength in pharma, IT, electronics, services, aerospace, food processing and engineering, there are a total of 14 thrust sectors identified.
The existence of several international companies and domestic companies, both in the pharmaceutical as well as IT and other areas, is also an important factor.
The custom-designed parks with custom-designed investor-friendly policies, ably supported by well-connected air routes. Telangana, with an urban population of 42%, is one of the world's most investment-friendly destinations. Telangana's 148 ready-to-occupy industrial parks, 27 SEZs, and a pre-approved land bank of 150,000 acres and sector-specific parks makes it as the most preferred destination not only in India, but puts it among the best globally. Hyderabad, the capital of Telangana state, has a proactive government that practices a minimum inspection, maximum facilitation policy, single window clearances that assures approvals in 15 days, and 24/7 power supply. The transparent approval process gives companies all the confidence they need to make Telangana a dream business hub. A number of national and multinational companies are thriving across varied sectors. It has everything the world needs to set up the next-gen, state-of-the-art industries. It is no wonder that a total of 3,000 approvals have been accorded within a short span of 18 months. Generating 500,000 employment. That Hyderabad is awarded the best city in the ease of doing business category by the Union Government of India is only a case in point.
I have personally experienced the agility and the responsiveness of the state administration to enhance the ease of doing business.
Sanofi continues to invest in Shanta in Hyderabad area because of the ease of doing business.
I pledge 8,000 crores of investment in your state.
You are invited to invest and grow in Hyderabad, in the state of Telangana. We will work as a team and the state government will assist you in identifying land, getting all approvals and setting up your unit. Please contact TSIIC.
Okay, the reason I showed this video before I move to the presentation is that a lot of people here are looking at entering into the EV space. And EVs being a emerging technology with not, not inbuilt business viability at this stage of time, would look for a destination to operate where they have got good support from the government, minimum operating costs in the initial stages. And that is where Telangana scores very high. Telangana was ranked number 1 in ease of doing business in 2016, along with Andhra Pradesh. Has a very progressive government, extremely good policies, and an extremely good supply of land bank. So now we'll move the presentation. So here I will not really talk about the electric vehicle policy because that's has gone for approval. So we'll have to wait for some time to get a hang of what's going on there. What I'll talk about is an approach which has gone into making of the EV policy, and we'll give you a hint of what we are going to come up with. So the topic of the presentation is development of EV hub and EV policy. So we talk about Europe as the original automotive hub, followed by US, then Japan, and now China, and maybe India. I'm not too sure if I would still call India as an automotive hub because a lot of technology is still getting imported from outside, even for the traditional vehicles. When do we call a center or a location or a country or a state a hub? When this comes together. So the two key elements of a product value chain are the production and consumption. When they both point to one single location is when we call any particular location as a hub, both happening together. And to simplify and also to build the context, production is what we would call the supply side and consumption the demand side. Now, a typical key hub characteristics, and the reason I'm talking about this is to build a context of what we should aspire for in terms of the electric vehicles. We cannot be import dependent and still say that we will have a 100% adoption of electric vehicles. So when we say a typical hub, what does it really talk about? So it has to be self-sustaining. So it has to be a good demand, a good local demand. It's true, it has to be self-supporting. That means a good amount of the action should be happening locally, be it R&D or manufacturing. The market dominance should ideally be local brands. So I would love to see a Mahindra and a Tata to have a good dominance in the market, along with Suzuki's and Hondas and Toyotas and Hyundais. The relevance should be very important. So we should have a contextual design and innovation. So you cannot imagine a product which is meant for Chinese market to do equally well in India. In fact, we have examples like, especially in commercial vehicles, where the commercial vehicles which were meant for Chinese market, when they came to India, the people found them a bit short supply, on the space for Indian dimensions, for the Indian drivers, and especially the Punjabi truck drivers were not really comfortable in Chinese truck cabins. So that might not really work. The cost advantage is very important. So the moment you talk about imports of any component or the complete vehicles, there is a duty that has to go with it, which kind of brings the cost up. And even when we understand that, okay, fine, for the electric vehicles, the near future is a bit import heavy, but that will never lead to a large scale adoption of EVs if we continue to rely on imports. So there has to be a development of technology locally, development of solutions locally, and a development assembly of products locally, along with the components. So the batteries has to be manufactured locally, the drivetrains have to be, the motors have to be manufactured locally. Why is a hub creation important? So we, first of all, okay, fine, Europe and America and China are doing good, let them do good. But we would also like India to be respected for its a hold on the technology and the manufacturing. So hub creation promotes technological self-sufficiency, which is very important for India to really qualify as a developed country in all sense. It drives innovation culture. So India has a good supply of engineers, but are we really innovating? I think we need to and we can. And this will happen when a real hub with demand and supply matching each other happens in India. Entrepreneurship, local brands getting created, and we have an opportunity. So now with EV technologies, we can have a lot of new brands emerging out of nowhere and kind of being recognized for the kind of work that they do. And we also have a stable employment potential. So we are not really dependent on the external economic equations for us to worry about will there be a attrition or a layoff and all those things. A hub creation ideally should lead to fast evolving customer preference and also the matching of the solutions that the industry can provide to them. Global technology leadership coming from the technological self-sufficiency. The next stage of self-sufficiency is the leadership at the global map. Cost advantages we talked about, economies of scale, local supply chain, local consumption will definitely lead to cost advantages. And eventually access to external markets. So once we are kind of done with meeting the expectations of the Indian market, we can look at the global markets and also be competitive in that space. And any imbalance in all of these may cause a hub displacement. So some other country might take the opportunity and build products and send to India, while India loses the opportunity to become a hub, an automotive or a EV hub. So what it means for India? So for India on the supply side, which for me is like, as already mentioned, is manufacturing, global competition. We will never have a closed economy where we will only have Indian brands. So the global brands will be there and we have to match up to them in terms of quality and everything. Understanding of customer preferences. The technical competence and innovation focus has to be there. We have to have indigenous developed solutions. Skilled labor availability has to be there. We cannot do without this. And for this, there is a huge task in front of the government to kind of enable the educational institutions to prepare the workforce for tomorrow's industry. And of course, we have to have quality awareness and a very competent supply chain. So any component that is imported comes with an import duty, adds to the vehicle cost. This will not really work in the long run. And more so, the moment you add cost because of the duty, you are compromising somewhere else in terms of the value of the vehicle to the end customer. The demand side is like the customer has to be made aware of the trends that's happening in the world and he has to demand for it. So the government has to create awareness, the industry has to create awareness. Everything should lead to a more aware customer. And also, the customer should be made aware of that the world is moving towards green technology. So even if the immediate economics don't work out, you have to be more responsible towards the ecology and maybe take an initial hit in terms of the initial investment, but your eventual economics is there. So the awareness has to be built. And of course, the benefits on maintenance and running costs and long-term viability, life of vehicle, all these things need to be, told to the customers. So there has to be a mechanism in place from the government and industry side to do this. The growth should be sustainable. Of course, that also means that the smart cities and the new cities which will come up should be properly planned and timely implemented to have a sustainable growth for the sector. A market cutting across segments. So you cannot only say a less than 25 km per hour e-rickshaw or your less than 20 kilowatt hour battery operated vehicle. You have to have a complete range which will cater to demand of all segments, be it passenger, personal mobility or shared mobility, commercial vehicles, fleet operations. Anything and everything should be covered in this whole roadmap of the demand creation. There has to be an infrastructure. As I talked in the morning that you cannot imagine the vehicles on the road without petrol pumps on the street. So a similar infrastructure has to be there to charge the vehicles. A clear demand projection has to be there and a predictable demand pattern has to be there from the demand side. For the investors to have the confidence that whatever they're investing, they will recover and there won't be disruptions in between like a slowdown or a policy paralysis kind of a thing. Now, who are the key actors here? The key actors are the manufacturers, of course, and some people are here who are representing the manufacturing side. We will have consumers, and consumers here can be individuals, institutional, and everybody. And then we have enablers. Now, the enablers are the country planning, town planning, urban development, infrastructure development, all those people, energy sector and all, which will enable the adoption of EVs. And then comes the policy guys, people like us, the regulators. And in this case, we not only interface with these people, but sometimes we also are playing the role of these actors. So sometimes we are also the enablers. In case of EVs, we also might have to be the consumers of the products in the initial days. and maybe create technology and do some kind of a development with our PSUs to, kind of support the manufacturing of these components. Then this is this understanding that, like we talk about India being a EV hub, why not Telangana being be the EV hub of the EV hub that is India? And that is where we realized that there has to be a policy for electric vehicles. So what was the genesis? And of course, we all have been talking about, there's been long discussions. And there are various challenges which obstruct the mass adoption of electric vehicles. There is not a good or very significant product portfolio to match IC vehicles. The battery technologies are evolving in terms of performance and cost. Big players, of course, are invested heavily in IC vehicles, and they have some reluctance because, they are not only reluctant for the sake of being reluctant. They also seek clarity from the government that what is the government planning to really do. So there is an origin that why we all are talking about a clear policy to support electric vehicles. The cost of EVs are way too high. Charging infrastructure is virtually missing, we all know that. And this is probably the biggest reason why EVs will not fly unless until this is addressed. And customer awareness, of course, personal mobility is a long drawn thing. We have to see how we build customer awareness based on usage. I might, as I said in the morning, E2 I have not used. I'm not sure what really the whole beast is. So I have to use the product some way or the other to get the confidence that, yeah, this works as for me as a product solution. So the need of policy was obviously the roadmap to overcome the challenges, simulate the demand, identify areas of quick adoption. It can be government orders, it can be institutional orders, it can be shared mobility, public transport, so on and so forth. And this starts from there. How do we first sit and identify areas of quick adoption? Charging infrastructure, very, very critical, and to ensure that we have got good solutions as per the Indian requirements, we promote technology development, we encourage consumers, create awareness, we minimize initial cost of setting up EV enterprise for manufacturers, because still a lot of ambiguities there as in how the market will play out. So, and how much time it will really take. So that if you say projection of say 1,000 vehicles by in next 2 years, will it really happen, or it will take 4 years to get me the 1,000 volume? So some mechanism should be there to minimize the initial cost of setting our enterprise to compensate for that kind of an ambiguity. Bridge the current price gap between IC vehicles and EVs, and ensure that emissions are not moved from roads to elsewhere. So I still do not see a thermal power, the idea of thermal power power stations giving the power for the batteries for the EVs is a flawed idea as per me. There has to be a renewable energy or a, like green energy which eventually goes in the battery, which eventually goes in the EV. Then only it's a proper green solution. So this, I think we can quickly go through. So what is the objective of a EV policy? So how to make any area a hub of all EV value chain activities, demand and supply, encourage users to switch to EVs, use institutional public levers for accelerated adoption, provide best-in-class ecosystem and infrastructure. So these are the objectives. Promote innovation, use the industry resources and the research institutions to focus on high-end research in EV technologies, incentivize automakers for investing in EV manufacturing and infrastructure development. And very important is the pool of skilled workforce to run the EV industry is also very, very important. It's a big challenge. We all talk about it, and we all have a roadmap, but how are we going to implement that? I have my doubts, of course. We'll try our best, but if it really works out the way we plan, so that's something that gives me jitters. So what is the strategy? So there has to be a clear understanding of what are the incentives for supply and demand side. A clear roadmap and support for the charging infrastructure development. Incentive related to various component of ownership cost. So there is the running cost, there is a purchase cost, there is a parking cost, there is a toll fees, and you can map out everything. And it's not only the initial purchase and the fuel cost which goes into the running of a vehicle, but so many other things which do matter. Some are symbolic, but they do matter. So if I tell that, okay, fine, I'm exempting parking fees for electric vehicle at all parking stations or parking areas in the city, the message is loud and clear. So maybe if you're going to a mall and the parking fee is 50 rupees and you go there at least once a day, or an office complex, and you save 50 rupees per day. So in a month, for 20 working days, you save 1,000 rupees. That really counts for any guy. So mandating use of EVs, mandating is a word I would try to avoid, but I don't know, I am not able to find the right word. So encouraging would be the right word. Mandating is like Aadhaar mandate comes to my mind. And so establishing a startup ecosystem to nurture innovation is very, very important. Support for research and innovation, emphasis on skill development, and battery cells and battery packs. Battery pack is okay, something which is not very high tech, but battery cell manufacturing in India, supported by R&D in battery manufacturing, battery cells, is very, very critical. So quickly, what are we talking about really? So demand side consumption based support. So tax exemption for electric vehicles, reducing gradually, so we cannot have a endless tax exemption. Eventually the industry will mature, the market will mature, and that's when we can say that, okay, fine, these tax exemption or tax breaks can be pulled out, the way Norway has recently done. So they are now pulling out all the tax exemptions that were there. Norway was at the forefront of exemptions for EVs. Now they are coming up with the new tax, which they are calling as a Tesla tax. And leverage growing user affinity for shared mobility. So we all realize that a lot of people are now giving away the idea of buying a car, but using Olas and Ubers. So Ola and Uber are the next solution because you don't have to pay for purchase of a parking space in your building and all that stuff. So these are going to be a good segment to tap into for adoption of EVs. And in the morning I said that EV makes good economic sense when you run say 50 plus or 100 plus kilometers in a day. And the shared mobility guys are doing that. They are running a vehicle for 200 kilometers in a day. So the recovery of the investment for them is much easier. And a lot of vehicle aggregators have talked to Telangana government, and they are saying we don't need any kind of purchase subsidy. It makes good business sense for us to even still have an EV, run it for 3 years, recover our cost, and make some money. Deploy electric vehicles in public and institutional transport, so state transport corporations, tourist places, some EV zones as it was talked about. And also the government has to work as a consumer for initial days. So maybe if a government has 50,000 vehicles in its, for various officers and other departments, it has the money and also the reason for, and also for setting an example that, yeah, EVs work as a mobility solution. The demand side infrastructure development has to have a separate focus. It is not as simple as just say one point in the demand side. It needs a mission level work. It is like creating a infrastructure which will cater to the projected demand. Where is the space? Who are going to be investors? Sale of power, resale of power is not a law in the country. So all those things have to be worked out. Government has been talking about the swapping model, which to me works, but is capital intensive. So if you have to create an inventory of around, say, 10,000 batteries, who is going to invest in that? But people are still looking at it, and it works as a technical solution, but maybe not as a financial solution. Government will have to lead the charging infrastructure development, followed by private investments. And we all know that government has got good land banks, so like small spaces within the city, prime areas, which government can use to develop small portable charging stations, 1 or 2 charging points. Fast, slow is not so important. Use shopping complexes, metro stations, parking stations as the points where charging can come. Supply side is something like, of course, the Indian government, be it the Make in India initiative or the Telangana government industrial policy framework, has a good amount of incentives for the manufacturing side. We are trying to build upon it, no conflict with any other sector, so the other sector should not feel like EV is getting all the attention and we are being sidelined. So we have to build upon it, but we will try to create an ecosystem for the EV manufacturing rather than just giving financial incentives. Financial incentives will be there. We'll try to create manufacturing zone where all these EV value chain activities coexist and complement in a very good environment. We will support firms for spending in R&D through various ways, creating center of excellences, giving some kind of capital subsidy on the R&D spend and all that stuff. Focus on skill development, promote the local startups, and again, back to skilling, study courses, 2-year PG programs, finishing courses, training programs for electric vehicles is key to success of this development of this. Yeah. And of course, for Indian, in context of Indian also in Telangana, it is very important that if tomorrow we have a government order, and if a Chinese company is bidding, and an Indian company is bidding, and a Korean company is bidding, there should be some understanding that the Indian company will be given some preference in some form to ensure that the local enterprise is developing. Conclusion, I think we can skip. I'm running a bit late, but I think I've covered most of the things. But the need for electric vehicles is undeniable. We have to move to it ASAP. Yeah. And it does not mean killing of ICs. It's a natural progression from one technology which has survived for almost 100+ years to a next technology, which is a very natural progression. I still think that 50 years down the line, if we don't do EVs and we have a vehicle which is like almost 1200 kgs of weight, just the vehicle itself, we somewhere didn't do something right. So there is a problem there. So we have to move to EVs. Thank you so much.